Hey, this is Al from Transformational Gaming. Today we're going to do an unboxing and almost kinda not sorta a review for this. But this is the Polk Reserve 700s, and the Polks are a brand that's just near and dear to my heart. I honestly think that this, I mean, people could say Clips. I have Clips speakers as well, but people say Clips is probably the better brand. But, you know, in the mid-range type of speakers, I think, honestly, the Polk are probably the best brand. But I want to talk about the Polks, and I've had some time to listen to them and the Reserves series. I want to talk about me maybe possibly buying some more Polk in the future as far as the Reserve series is concerned. Before I do all that, I like to ask you guys to please subscribe to the channel, please like the channel, and comment, give thoughtful comments, right? You know, don't just come in. Now I can see for my gameplay videos, I know those aren't always super interesting and stuff like that, like my thoughts videos, but you know, for my thoughts videos, I put a little bit more into them. I put a lot into both, to be honest with you, because the editing is monstrous when those 5-hour videos. Yeah, continue to support the channel. You know, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I don't upload that often, but I'll upload often enough. So getting back into the Polks, so there's some good, bad, and ugly when it comes to the Polks. One of the bad parts of unboxing these Polks is that, man, these were really challenging. Now, I'm not going to say I'm the strongest man in the world. I understand that. But these things are like 100 pounds. And when you unboxing something, I mean, you were essentially deadlifting these things out the box. And just turning these things over and pulling them out. I mean, man, these can be hazardous to your health, because my ceilings aren't tall enough for me to just lift these up out of the box. Okay, these things are crazy massive, man, and the boxing and everything is just, but when you set it up, it don't look all that big, but once you start like walking around it and really kind of looking at and taking in all of the materials this thing is made of, you start looking at it and you like, okay, this thing is a big boy. And so deadlifting this thing out of the box. Now, I'm not stupid. I did turn it over. I did slide it out of the box. But again, my ceilings ain't high enough, so I had to lean this thing on my couch and pull it out that way, man. And trust me, the way they got that stuff in the box, and it's all type of stuff that prohibits you from it sliding out smoothly. It's just a mess, man. So that would be the bad part of the Polks, man, because these things are huge. But, you know, for real, to be honest with you, once you get it unboxed and once you finish putting it up and setting it up and things like that, it's really a treat. The problem is that you have to do and go through all of that stuff twice. Like, it ain't like you just do it once. You gotta do it twice. It's one of those things, man. I'd rather have a large subwoofer, because at least most subwoofers aren't that tall, and I can at least pull the box out from the subwoofer. But my God, man, these things, man, and these things are sharp on the side too, so they round it off, but they have some sharp edges to them, and my God, the tweet will darn near kill you, man. But I understand this is kind of an unboxing, but that's not really what I want to talk about. So what I really want to talk about is actually how they look and how they sound, and I want to put more emphasis on how they sound, because boy, oh 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 boy, these bad boys ain't no joke. Me and my wife, we spent the New Year's, man, watching movies, getting a little tipsy. Not too much, but just a little tipsy. Watching movies, man. Before all of that, I took time out to listen to some music. Mostly musicality. Shouts out to musicality. I cracked open the Amazon music and I just listened to the best of Michael Jackson or whatever, right? I did a lot of best of. Let's see who else I played. I played a little Aha. Playing, played a lot of 70s music, some Boogie Nights with the Bee Gees, Heat Wave. There's a lot of good music out there that I wish that we had nowadays, but we just don't have those type of music. People, actually playing musical instruments. Everything is basically on the keyboard, but that's neither here nor there. I played everything that I thought I could, even from the early, mid, late 70s. Played a lot of Total, but late 70s, about late 70s to early 80s, on down the line, right? So playing these tracks, like, you get a lot of a perspective, especially when you're contrasting them to your previous speakers, which wasn't a slouch. I mean, the Monitor 70s are a good slam thumping piece of hardware there. Okay, so with these speakers, the sound is straight up amazing. So without really having a deep reference, I've had all type of speakers when I was growing up to now. I had Techniques, I've had the Polks, Monitor 70s, I have these, but I've had subwoofers. And let me just say, I've had even more different type of speakers, but I've heard a lot of different speakers, and these are by far the most crystal clear sound. I try not to mess with the EQ too much. I try to keep it all at reference, but I do boost the bass. Let me be honest. Okay, I do boost the bass, but outside of that, I pretty much keep everything at reference level. And I just want to say that these are by far the best sounding speakers. We're not going to talk about the bass yet, just from a sound perspective. The one thing I like about these, thing I kind of hate about them, but I still like them for the most part, is the mid-range speaker, the 5.5 inch. They say 6.5 inch, but I'm counting 5. Okay, but 5.5 inch woofer that they have has a turbine type of indenture inside of the woofer, and that really gives a great drum beat to whatever you're listening to. So, like, say for instance, a lot of time you hear drum beats, it got this sound, right? It sounds like it's literally, something's literally knocking on the door or something, right? And we all grew up with it, we accept it, but it seemed like Polk had a presence of mind to say, you know what, instead of having the knocking sound, we're going to give some precision and some clarity to the drums and to the kick drum. And that's what that turbine does really, really well. It really gives the kick drums some substance, some shape. It's not just, it's really giving it some shape, some real form of how the drum is supposed to sound, and all of that stuff has a nice shape to it. And a lot of it is because of the foam that they're using. They're using some type of foam. It seems like it's sensitive. It seems like you can take a nail and kind of just chunk out some of the foam that's on the woofers. But with the turbines in them, I mean, they look really good. I mean, for real. I mean, they look good, but they sound even better, man. Something about how that sponge sounds, it really allows the excursion and the snap to sound a lot more detailed and have more depth. So very excited to even listen to it. Now, I will say it does have some little harmonic resonance, especially when it tries to reproduce like bass lines. Like, you can tell that mid-range is not made for that. It's really made for like kick drums and voices. But when it tries to reproduce like bass lines or whatever, I mean, there's a little harmonic resonance. That's why I always use the EQ to calibrate, so that hopefully no frequencies that our bass lines will hit that sponge. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be some frequencies that hit it and it sounds pretty good. But I don't know, man. You have to be careful when dealing with that speaker in particular. That speaker is more for voices and kick drums, in my opinion. But again, you have to make sure everything's level, or just turn off all the EQ, except for my AVR because it's a little bit too much bass. But neither here nor there. Internally, there's a graphic equalizer. I have an equalizer that's coming from the actual amp, and yeah, it really does pack a nice punch, and it really does a good job with those drums. So the subwoofers on here. Now these are kind of controversial. Don't get me wrong, these are excellent, man. I mean, the subwoofers are excellent. I give you the good about it as far as bass is concerned. Like, this is the tightest bass I ever heard. Like, I've never heard bass this tight. And not to downplay any of my experiences with home audio. I had friends come in, they different systems and stuff, and I like listening to. I think it's all great. But, as far as the tightness, man, like this thing, this thing is, and then it's done. If a bass line come in, if explosion happen, and then stops. There's no echoing, nothing else that's gonna come through those subs. Those subs are very, very accurate, but they're very, very not 8 inches. Okay, these are not 8-inch subs. Now, it depends what you're counting. If you're counting the surrounding portion of the subwoofer, okay, it's about 11 inches, right, across. Maybe 9 inches, between 9 and 10 inches, right? But as far as measuring what I think is important, which is the actual woofer size, now, what they may be doing is saying, okay, the surrounds come out a little bit, and if they're flushed out with the rest of the cone, then it's 8 inches. If you're saying that, okay, then that's fine. But as far as measuring them, sorry, bro, these are not 8-inch cones. They're not. They're just not. So now, when I've seen these, I had seen them a couple of times before on Audioholics. More recently, I've seen James Larson talk about these being 8 inches. And I have to remember, and you have to remember as well when you listen to YouTube channels like Audioholics, those guys are in bed with Polk. So, they have a deep relationship with Polk. I always liked Polk, even before. I was there to say that I turned Audioholics on to Polk, because I used to write in their comments all the time, hey, what about those Polks? The Polk this and the Polk that, you know what I mean? And so then after a while they started talking about them. But Polk got bought by Sound United or something like that. And Sound United owns Denon, Marantz, and Polk, and a couple other ones, all right? And so now that Polk got bought by Sound United, it's like, okay, they're bringing them on. Now it's time to cap for them a little bit. Now you can say, okay, let's measure the circumference, like, of how it's indented, and maybe you can get up to 8 inches because the woofers are indented and the dust cap is inverted, so you can count around that and say, hey, this is 8 inches. I don't know, but this is not a traditional 8-inch cone. That's all I gotta say, man. This is about 7, maybe 7.5. Not even that, for real. I think it's like 7.2, to be honest with you. It's not too much past 7. But if you want to count the surrounds around the woofer, then that's fine with me. I'm not going to argue with you. But if you do that, then that's about 11, about between 10 and 11 inches. So just remember that. But outside of that, man, these things can sing, boy. They get deep too. They get deep. Now, I did some sound tests with them, and they come out to about 20 hertz. So yeah, absolutely, man. You can really feel the bass coming out of here. Shoot, 250 hertz all the way down, man. These things sound really, really good, man. And the crossover on them is not the best crossover, to be honest with you, because you do get a little bit of bleed in too. But again, if you mess with the EQ, then you can pretty much get rid of all of that from bass lines and stuff. So but for the most part, as far as bass goes, these goes pretty deep. And like I said, I think they rated to go down 38 hertz or maybe 40 hertz, like James Larson said at Audioholics. But at the same time, you're gonna really feel the the bass, and a lot of it is because of his like down firing port that they have. And I didn't get a photo of this. Maybe I should have got a photo, but you will see it all on the internet if you just look up Polk Reserves 700s. I mean, they'll slice it open, man, and you'll see the whole breakdown of how the system is flowing through the box and how the air is going through the port. And there are some harmonic resonances, especially if you do a sound test at maybe like 5 hertz. I mean, you're gonna hear the paper flipping back and forth. But it's not bad though. It's not necessarily bad. There's not a lot of port noise. Of course, they got some type of deadening, dampering technology for the port, so you're not going to get that. And as far as should you use a subwoofer with these, it depends what you're doing. Like we watched, Batman. We watched a lot of old school movies, Batman. We watched some new movies, and the response is pretty much spot on. But I would say you still need a subwoofer for these, because there's a lot of tracks in a lot of movies, especially newer movies nowadays. They have a lot of subterranean depths of bass. So those tracks, a lot of new music. I mean, you listen to the Baby song called "Whoa" or whatever. It came out like three years ago. But if you listen to "Whoa" or some other newer type of music, you're going to need a subwoofer, because you don't hear anything at 17 hertz. 18 hertz, you get a little bit out of it, but you don't really get that much out of these Polks beyond or below 20 hertz. And they're only 7.8, maybe 7.5 inch woofers, and so you can't bleed blood out of a turnip. I mean, it is what it is. But that bass is with authority, and you're going to get some real chest punching bass out of this, man. And like, we didn't even have it up that loud, man, and it's still kind of thumped. So let me know what y'all think about the Polks. Does anybody own these? I guess that would be my question. Does anybody own these? What do y'all think about? I think home theater is essential to gaming, and really that's all you can ask for. A lot of systems you got to pay money to get like deeper bass, but punchy bass should be free. Like, it should be almost free. And so but you'd be surprised how many systems and how many subwoofers don't have a lot of punch. Even though they can get down low, they don't have a lot of punch. For $1,099, which is about $1,100, I mean, I don't think these are a bad price. You getting a modern speaker, I mean, with the feet and stuff at the bottom. They got other speakers out there that are like less than this. Like, they got an $800 speaker, which I plan on getting for my rears and my surrounds. I'm overdriving these, so I'm overdriving these. I think the recommended capacity is 300 watts, and I'm putting 700 into them. I don't know. I'm overdriving these, and I would advise anybody, if you got some reserves, overdrive them, man. Don't let them just be hanging in the wind with 100 watt cheap Sony, right, or a cheap Yamaha. Put something behind there. Put some fire behind there, but don't just cheap out. But if you like bass, go ahead and buy you an EQ, and you'll get some authority out of these, definitely. All right, that's all I got to say about it. Like, subscribe to the channel. This is Al from Transformational Gaming, and we out.